Thank you, Didier, who'll join us, of course, in our panel in a second. But now we immerse ourselves into the brave new world of AI. And anytime you have a conversation about AI, I think you will all relate to this, it's predicated by fear, uncertainty, trust, of course, the word benefits as well. I have personal experience with this from a consumer point of view, because Didier mentioned big data. I went online to book an airline ticket to go from Los Angeles to New York, a flight that I take every week. And I found a fare that I thought I liked, but I didn't know if I had to go on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and I wouldn't know for the next 4 hours. When I found out 4 hours later, I went back online, and that fare went up $120. And I kept on saying, now, how did that happen? Well, I went to the airlines, and I asked them to give me an explanation. And their explanation was that the transcon flight was a very popular flight based on law of supply and demand, and that's why the fare went up. And I took them at their word, but then I decided to give it a test. And the test that I gave them was, I went back online and booked a flight for 4 months later in March from LaGuardia to Des Moines, Iowa on a Wednesday at 11 o'clock in the morning. I guarantee you, no one is flying from New York to LaGuardia at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday in November. And I got a fare of $128. I went back 2 hours later, it was $178. Now, no one can tell me that in that 4-hour period, 50,000 demented travelers, deranged perhaps, had this sudden desire to go to Des Moines, Iowa. And no one can answer that question. I think you can. And ironically, and of course I didn't book the ticket, ironically, ever since that week, every Wednesday I get an email telling me about all the great things I can do in Des Moines, Iowa. No disrespect to Des Moines, Iowa, but I want to talk about that too. But we can't do that until we have a real breakdown of what AI is. And I'm really interested in this for all those reasons and many, many more. So here to help us out from Jacobs Engineering and the co-author and the co-producer of Innovations of the World, please welcome Sam Altman.
Hola, Sevilla. Y gracias por una visita mágica. So, I am Sam Altman, and I'm here to demystify, I think, what is a buzzword that's been going around the industry for a year or two now, artificial intelligence. And my aim is by breaking this down, hopefully you can see how it fits into your business models and maybe how you can find the extra revenue to help support some of these sustainable initiatives that you're going through. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit shorter than the OpenAI Sam Altman, but that's okay. I did go to the same innovation design school out of Silicon Valley. Through George Washington University, I had helped start a new venture competition that helps innovative student entrepreneurs succeed in their business ventures, start and grow their business ventures, and today awards over $250,000 in prize money to those students, particularly those that are concentrated in ESG and sustainable initiatives. Through the University of, researching through the University of Tampa, we were able to help the city on its pathway to becoming a more tech-friendly ecosystem, break down silos for cooperation, and through that, we were able to help the Tampa International Airport, constantly ranked one of the top American airports, find its vision for the airport of the future. Through the US Army, as an innovation officer, I've also helped write policy to allow us as an institution bring in more innovative solutions and more high-tech areas into our military complex to keep us up to date. And at the end of the world, I just like to see things get done. So I'm in front of you today with Jacobs Engineering, where we concentrate on the design of smart cities as well as smart energy solutions. I'm also a co-producer of a publication called Innovations of the World, where we spotlight different areas of innovation happening around the world. I know we'd love Sevilla to be one of our next books. So, what is AI? What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a very fast and very shallow but broad overview of the topic of AI. In this, my hope is that you will understand it more, you won't be scared of it, you'll demystify what it is. So let's get right into it. What is AI? Is it a tool for us? Is it a series of tools? Or is it a cybernetic organism, human? My Arnold accent's not working. So the answer to this is none of these, but maybe a little bit of all of them. I would argue that it's more like a Swiss Army knife at this point. It's more like a tool that will help you design other tools quicker and quicker, faster, be more efficient in what you're doing, what you need to do. There was a quote coming out of yesterday from Rajiv saying that half of the tools that are needed from technology to get us to a more sustainable carbon zero footprint don't exist yet. Isn't it good we now have a Swiss Army knife to help us build those tools? So breaking it down, AI is really 6 different disciplines of computer science that have been around theorized since 1935, but are just now coming into vogue. It's ubiquitously used for all 6 of these terms, but nobody ever really talks about which one they mean. So let me start. Neural networks is the process of computing designed after how the human brain actually processes information that enables basically computers to then get into machine learning, which is a very statistical-based approach using big data to basically say, based on this input, here's the most statistically relevant output that I'm going to give you. Deep learning is basically an adaptation of that. So for this audience, I don't think we need to get into it, but if machine learning was coffee, deep learning would be café con leche. Computer vision then takes that, it learns off of imagery data, and is able to predict and translate into computer language what that imagery data is, and now it can tell you actually what that imagery data may be doing. Natural language processing is the same, but for actually the written word. So you have a paragraph in English, the computer is able to recognize what that is, ingest that into computer language, and now once it's in computer language, it can spit it back out into, say, Chinese or French or whatever you would like it to do, right? All of these combined is when you get into robotics and automation. So you see robots out there now that actually have the capability of doing your natural language processing as well as computer vision. And when you combine these, you get really interesting objects. But I will tell you, this is not new. Who remembers Clippy? We all remember Clippy, the Microsoft virtual assistant that was designed that you would ask it questions, and it would try to give you an answer as to the Microsoft definition of the answer. Very much a predecessor. That came out in the 2000s, right? So that's great. So why all of a sudden do we feel that we're in a big bang moment for AI? Well, I'm going to explain that to you, and it's really because we have 3 important technologies that have come online. One, you have the ubiquity and the speed of the internet. Every single piece of the world's Library of Alexandria and knowledge are all available online and in computer-readable format that they can ingest. The cloud computing now gives people the ability to have a supercomputing capabilities with supercomputing memory available at your fingertip for rent. You no longer have to build the infrastructure to have yourself a supercomputer lab. And then finally, graphical processing units built by companies like NVIDIA, really these processing units that were meant to support the gaming industry to bring graphics onto the screen in a more efficient manner. Well, it turns out the way that these processing units process the data was exactly what was needed to process some of the data structures that go into what you see coming out of AI. So all these together lead us to large language models. This is what you see with OpenAI's ChatGPT, with Google's Bard, with OpenAI's DALL-E, with their image recognition and image production. They're able to ingest all of this information, right? And based on their statistical inferences from millions and billions worth of parameters and inputs, they're able to give you an output that says that this is statistically the most accurate thing to tell you. So what does that mean for us? Well, let me tell you. As DDA, and as yesterday we were mentioning, this is already being used in many places within the travel and tourism industry to improve operational efficiencies by optimizing supply chains, driving down your costs through things like predictive maintenance, so you know when you need to go out and replace the widgets that support other necessary tools within your cost structures, enhancing your guest experience through either loyalty apps or translation apps, things like this that really raise the experience of your customer and keep them wanting to come back. And of course, increasing revenue, because now you can pull in information like weather patterns, travel patterns, things like that, and automatically price your offering to match those trends. What are some future opportunities utilizing AI for this, and how do we fit that into the sustainable tourism model and perhaps even produce that revenue that we need to support some of these initiatives? It really starts with understanding where you are in the AI supply chain. AI is all about big data. It needs big data to be trained and to be able to give you statistically accurate output. So identifying where you are in the supply chain is paramount. Are you a farmer of the data? Do you have the planes, the trains, the automobiles that lead to people using assets that then lead to those trend analysis? Do you have the ability to harvest that data? And then can you distill that data into usable and actionable intelligence that people want to consume? So let's talk about your data strategy. Do you know what data you need to collect? Do you know the partners that are interested in your data? Do you have the tools like the loyalty apps and the check-in apps and the things that enable you to capture the data that is then usable? And then, can you make that data, can you distill that data and sell it as actionable, usable intelligence? The answer is you probably do a lot of all four of those quadrants, but you probably only get paid by maybe one. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the revenue strategies involved with software and AI projects, and perhaps we can incorporate this into your portfolio of revenue streams. Subscription and recurring revenue happens to a lot of software companies. This is why they're quite valuable. They enjoy 40% profit margins because of this, because people are willing to pay them month over month for access to their information. Is this something that your downstream partners are giving you? Are they paying you month over month for access to your data that you produce? Sales and per use, it is one paradigm that they use. It may or may not be applicable to you, but if you need a picture imaged on the internet, you pay for that one-time use. You have affiliate and advertisement. This is why Gmail is free, right? This is why Peter all of a sudden is the biggest fan of Des Moines, Iowa, right? Because some computer system saw his data, and that data was sold, and all of a sudden, the affiliates started marketing to him because he was plausibly a more accurate source of cash flow. The freemium and donation models are also used in the software world. Freemium being you have a free product to enable people to come into your marketplace and peruse around, and if somebody wants to use the premium version, they pay for that. And then donations, you'll see that with all the Wikipedia.orgs and things like that, where people recognize the value that you're giving them first. And in order to be part of your community and be a contributing member, they want to give you money because you've given them so much value first. Now, with all this, I recommend that you adopt an innovation strategy into your business. The purpose of this slide is to be busy because adopting a rapid innovation process into your business is quite complicated. But once you start doing it, you realize that this is how you keep on top of the industry trends. You start with the user in mind. You develop products. You come out with prototyping products. You then take that product and you test it in the market and make sure, and you try to do this over an average span of 3 to 5 months. And I used 3 to 5 months when I built this slide. Well, 3 to 5 months was the time period we used before ChatGPT. So honestly, if you really knew how to do it, you could break this time down to 2, 3 months. Then, where in your customer journey map can you apply these? Can you optimize every piece of your customer's journey at every time point when they're using your product to maximize their experience and maximize their desire to give you the revenue that you need? Now, lastly, there are some pitfalls. Unfortunately, with any new technology, right, particularly like where we are, there will be volatility with us creating regulations and different risks. First one being business risk. There will be increased competition. With the fact that AI is going to be driving down barriers to entry, as well as the cost to build competitive products, you'll see an increase in competition. So it really is the time to identify exactly your key product and what drives the loyalty of your customers. Time to do that old-fashioned SWOT analysis and see where you are with the ability to adapt to this new technology. Cybersecurity risks is paramount. Once you start dealing with people's data, you're going to have to protect that data, or you open yourself up to large liabilities. Zero trust is one of those ways you can do it. Basically, what you're saying is you're having an online customer authenticate themselves all the time so that there's never an entity out there that can trick itself and make it seem like someone else. Data governance of AI, as well as privacy compliance. Realize that AI is nothing more than a statistical model, and statistical models drift because we're humans and we change all the time. Therefore, you need that subject matter expert to recognize when the AI model is not being exactly truthful. Finally, blockchain is a technology you'll be able to take advantage of. Not only can you do this through reducing the cost of your transactions, but you'll be able to increase the trust and the knowledge of your customer base based on this. And trust will be very important when AI comes on, because it's like, where did that picture come from? Do I trust the source that it came from? Or is this an AI thing that's out there? Blockchain's one of your answers. Finally, the regulatory environment is going to be constantly changing. The EU obviously is very much out in front of America right now, passing their act in May 2020 for data privacy laws and how AI will be dealt with. Right now, they have a schedule of a risk-made schedule based on the amount of the market size that your AI can interact with is then the level of scrutiny that your AI needs to go through in order to be given a permission to operate. The U.S. still operating under our Health Insurance Provider Accountability Act, right, defined our definition of personal privacy data and defines the protections of that. But as you can see, that law hasn't been updated since 1996. And we're finally getting around to the issues with AI, but it's mostly in copyright and royalty laws, because that's where the money is. People are concerned about their intellectual property being used to train some of these AIs, and now they're not getting paid for it. So with that being said, AI is here, and you're going to have to deal with it. So we might as well learn about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And as a result of your speech, I'm giving you a ticket to Des Moines, Iowa. One way. Now the question becomes, and by the way, my lesson from my Des Moines, Iowa experience was two things. When signing on back to the computer to check on that fare, I either have to use somebody else's computer or clean out all my cookies, because I don't really want to go to Des Moines, Iowa right away. You have a microphone right there, by the way. Now we have to figure out the economic shifts here, because what does the cost of sustainable travel mean in relation to AI? What products can be sold, as Sam was talking about, that will drive profitability or maintain responsibility? And are the profits sustainable? Will AI and blockchain improve or worsen that profitability and perhaps even just as important, is there another way to do this in terms of the way we travel, how much we travel, or how we travel at all? So I'd like to welcome to the stage the rest of our panel. Pablo Castillo, the co-founder of Chain4 Travel, Kat Jones, the founder and CEO of Byway Travel, and Jose Luis Cordova, the managing partner of Andalusia Lab. Please welcome them. There we go. So welcome, everybody. I guess to start things off, I go back to one of your slides, Sam, when you're talking about in the real world and the ideal world, I should say, you know, it's about improving operational efficiency, it's about driving down costs, it's about increasing revenue, and then you also had in there improve the guest experience, right? I happen to think sometimes the two are mutually exclusive. I get the reliability, the efficiency, the costs, and the revenue, but how does that enhance the traveler experience? Because we've now been, to a certain extent, conditioned to, I mean, I'll ask this question right now. How many of you make your airline reservations online? Almost all of you. And I know why you do it. I know why you guys do it. Because you can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning in your bathrobe. You don't have to talk to a human being. God forbid you should have a conversation. And you think that it's going to answer all your questions. So the question I'm going to pose to everybody is, we'll start with AI and talk about that, is to what extent does our conditioning to go online take away our opportunity for a conversation that can truly answer our questions?
Well, I would say 100%, right? We've been in a world now for the past 5-10 years where one extra button click on your app could cost you $1 billion in revenue because it's just too hard to press that extra button, right? So the people that can make it a swipe are the ones that get the business. Now, AI, when you talk about optimizing the customer experience, gives you the capability to put yourself as a human-centered design professional into the shoes of your customer and realize from end to end, when they experience your product, how do I optimize each and every intersection that they will come across with my product?
Right, but how does that affect choice? Meaning, the word seamless sounds good until it doesn't benefit you.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's I think that's an age-old problem, right? You have the laziness factor of the fact that I only want to go and see what's right in front of me, or you have people that are willing to do research and find out what the better deal is.
But the question is, when you have the expediency aspect of it, about being able to go online, then you don't have the energy necessarily to want to ask those questions, right?
Well, that is I guess that is the obstacle of the future that needs to be...
No, it's the obstacle of the present.
And loyalty is a good solution to that, right? If your customer knows that you're the most optimal product that they want to stay with, then they will go that extra little bit to make sure that they are staying with your product.
All right, let's bring that up to the actual transaction aspect of it. Who wants to jump into that?
Well,
Can we turn this microphone on, please?
Yes. I would say that for us, at least, that we are working with SMEs and with small entrepreneurs, and for us, the AI really...
Can you hold the microphone just a little closer to you because
Yes.
of all that background noise?
Now, better?
Much better.
I would say that the AI is a tool for them that help these companies to have more time to serve their customers. This is how I see that really can help AI to improve the experience of the customers.
Well, right before you jump in, Kat, I just want to ask one question. If it allows them to reduce costs, that means it also allows them to get rid of a labor force that can actually have a human interaction and have that conversation. Let me give you an example. Every time I go to an airport, they try to direct me to a kiosk. I want to destroy the kiosk. And the reason is because it doesn't allow me to have a conversation, to answer the questions I might need added. Now, what we really aren't really talking about here, and what we can, is the commoditization of travel, which is fueled by that tool.
Yes, of course, we can avoid some labor in the travel industry if we use these tools. This is obvious. But at the same time, we have a gap of people. We need people to work in the travel industry because we don't have enough people in some activities. So this is
Well, that's a staffing issue as a byproduct of COVID, but that's another story.
yes. But what I would say that we can focus. Of course, some of the work of some of the people that are working will be unavoidable. This is of course, but we also can improve some of the or develop new products, or improve some of the products that really are focused on the physical attention and the very approach attention to the people.
Yeah,
Kat?
I think. Yeah, so I'll say hi because I haven't yet. Hello, I'm Kat. I'm founder and CEO of Byway.
Hold the microphone a little closer.
I'm founder and CEO of Byway. We do flight-free holidays, so I'm all about trains and boats and buses and things like that. And I suppose my addition to what you're talking about is that I think we need to remember that AI is a tool, and we need to think about where we can apply that tool to have a more sustainable product and service at its core. Because I think AI will be able to free up all sorts of opportunities for people to refocus their time and to save time and to do bigger things and better things. And so fundamentally, we have to also expect ourselves to think about what's the kind of product that we want to be offering to which technology and AI will be able to sort of emphasize and accelerate it.
As opposed to questioning the technology, which we're not, we're questioning the application of the technology. And I think that's the issue we're talking about here. And to your point, Kat, and it's something that you specialize in, I mean, we're seeing countries right now looking at costs and driving down or driving up efficiencies. Countries like France basically incentivizing people not to fly, basically incentivizing people to, and they can do this based on their data and their algorithms, to take the train or other forms of transportation, which might actually be more efficient given the distances involved.
Yeah, and I think so. To contextualize where I'm coming in, Byway, we're really focused on journeys. So we offer holiday journeys, but we offer travel experiences where the journey is as much a part of the experience as the destinations that you visit. And where you're avoiding hotspots, where you're staying in locally owned accommodation, and lots of this, it's kind of slow travel. I don't know how many people are familiar with the term of slow travel, but these slower travel products that lean into lots of the different aspects of sustainability, they take it as a multifaceted whole, being able to drive, so we see a lot of leadership, as you said, out of France, right? We have a lot of policy support that's just starting to do work to make this a more accessible travel product and travel offering. We also have a rise in consumer awareness where we need to have people sort of know that this is an option more and know that it's actually a lovely option that actually lots of people are willing to pay more for. I think we often see sustainability as a cost and who's going to pay the cost, and it's a pain, and how do we accommodate it and pay for it. And I think what we're seeing already, certainly at Byway, is that people are paying for a richer, more rounded experience that just so happens to also be sustainable, and the tech is helping that to scale.
Of course, the real key is to educate the people as to what that really is, because otherwise it's a nice thought,
Right.
but it doesn't relate to them. At the end of the day, people tend to be selfish. Mm-hmm. People tend to be, if an airfare increases $3, the needle moves somewhere else, right? Nobody says, oh, is it sustainable? They say, oh, it's more expensive, right?
Right.
Now, one of the things Didier talked about in your presentation, in the hospitality industry, it's not necessarily the delivery of the service that makes the difference. It's the delivery of the recovery when things go wrong. And the use of a virtual assistant, for example, if a plane is delayed, canceled, there's a weather issue, there's a conflict in the region, that may be something that happens faster than everybody else thinks, only because people don't want to wait in line, right?
Yes, what we can say. First of all, I think all the apps and the relationship are not at the level you are, as a customer, expected. When you mention that you don't want to go to a kiosk, that means in your personal AI, you have not yet the answer. So that means there is no yet the relationship or your own bots for giving you the answers of what you are requested. So that's a pain point for you, and it's not already solved. So that's maybe the next step. So what does it mean? It means...
Although, let me introduce something to you. When I got to the kiosk that day, I went to the counter, to the ticket counter, and said, hey guys, can you answer this problem I have with my ticket? And their answer was, oh, we're only here to fix kiosk problems. And I'm saying, that's the problem.
Yeah, for sure. So that means if you are able to solve your needs through digital, that's fine, and it's not at the right level, and then you need to find someone to speak. Maybe that will be a robot, or maybe that will be a human being. That's
Sam?
That's when your people fixing the kiosk can bring their ChatGPT app and say, speak to my ChatGPT.
Or speak to the hand. But I mean, I know we're going to get there. The question is, how well are we going to get there? I mean, it's not, we're not fighting the technology here today. We have to embrace it, but we have to apply it in a way that makes sense from a revenue point of view and from a customer experience point of view. And then dealing with these sustainability issues that should never be ignored.
Well, that's where there are things like when they outsource the customer feedback pieces, right? And they
talk about the call centers
and things like this. The experience for the customer is not great because it's not Stan from Des Moines that you're speaking with.
Well,
right?
the experience for the customer is not great because the people in those call centers haven't been properly trained to know the difference between Dallas and Dulles.
Right. But I think the new AI and the ways that it advances will be increasing that experience. And there are ways of doing this. This is one of the genius things that OpenAI did, actually, was they realized when people speak to computers, they actually don't know how to speak to the computer. So what they did was not just translate the computer language into human language, they translated the human language into computer language so that they could get a more efficient response.
Yes.
So I think coming back to your initial question, I think we will see a lot of technology, AI, blockchain, IoT applied together, but with a human touch. Our industry lives of human touch, and it's missed opportunities if we don't have that. I mean, this kind of encounters and whatever customers need support can then be fed back into the AI to improve the service. But we will need to have this kind of two choice, especially now that the large population of our travelers, they are not tech savvy. That means they will struggle with kiosks, so we need also to support that. And coming back to your remark, I mean, I love it that you said, okay, we can leave creativity, we have more time for other things, but truth is, digitalization also kills jobs. And a large portion of that people cannot be re-employed because there are too technical skills or whatever. They will leave our industry. Currently, our industry is understaffed. Definitely, after Corona, and underinvested as well when it comes to internal education, and we need to improve that as well and take care of those who may fall over the cliff, so to say, to help them to find other jobs or find other opportunities. But technology and AI will definitely also kill some jobs.
You know, I'm sorry, Kat, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to talk about the specialization of roles as well. So when we at Byway, we have a team that are a customer-centric team. We support all of our customers on WhatsApp through all of their holidays. So we have them at the drop of a chat message. If something's running late, we can be proactive, but we can also just react to, hang on, what's the train number? You know, lots of people don't necessarily know what traveling on trains is like. And as we grow our business, the WhatsApp support, no matter what happens with AI, that is a core part of our product, and that team will be a core part of our business.
So what you're saying is, at least for the moment, when in doubt, human being.
Well, what I'm saying is I think there are lots of areas already in our business where we can free up time, right? We are happy for the computers to book the tickets. We're happy for AI to help make that faster. We're actually happy for customers who are happy to chat to a chatbot to be able to chat to a chatbot, but that bot shall always be able to route you to a person for the people who want to speak to a person where that adds value. So I think it's about taking the balance and making sure we're preserving the product quality and the customer experience quality and using human beings to do that.
So going back to your point about enhancing the service as opposed to replacing the service, I'll give you an example. This goes back about 5 or 6 years ago, where people began to embrace technology because they were seduced by it. One of the big hotel chains said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to replace room service with a robot. And that robot will be able to deliver anything to your room. And so they tried it. It lasted about a week. Here's what happened. Either the robot was beaten up by the guests, literally beaten up by the guests. They had a lot of dead robots in the hall. Or, the best part of all, they caught 2 robots trying to escape the hotel. So I think that's
machine learning.
I think right. I think the technology had to be a little bit better perfected there. But going back to Plan B, right? Can you get to a point where you can vet this properly so people know they're getting correct information? We know they're going to get information. How do they know they're getting the correct information?
I think this is where this. I think it's tempting to see AI as having a lot of answers, especially language models. And if you ever try to plan an itinerary, it's going to make up, especially an overland itinerary, it will make up trains that don't exist. It will mention ferries that don't exist because it's a language model. So when we think about how we're applying these tools, we're looking at the AI being a supervisor of data that already exists, right? And an acquirer of data that already exists from reliable data API streams where you can use those, you can use the AI to distill like what does this person need and want and how do I surface that to them, but it's not then making up what exactly is being surfaced because that needs to come from somewhere reliable.
So
Yes.
I definitely also think, and that's why I think that blockchain and AI complement each other very, very well, is we need verified data. I mean, if we feed the beast with information which is out there in the internet, ChatGPT 3 was fed with data till 2021, I think. They just put everything in there, and that's outdated data. Sometimes you have GDPR infringements, you have copyright infringements, or a lot of made-up itinerary which does not exist, right? And I think what we need to make sure is whoever owns data, that the data gets verified, ideally by multiple parties, and then it's fed and verified by the AI.
Okay, who's verifying it?
Well, we call that human in the loop and human on the loop, right? You either have a human that has to pass through all the decisions that your AI processes are going to make, or you have somebody overviewing these decisions as they get made, make sure the models aren't drifting, or make sure that they're giving your customers accurate answers.
And of course, the one thing we all love is speed. We love that. I mean, if I'm in my car and I'm looking at my gas tank and it's saying I'm empty, I can push a button on my phone and say, where's the nearest gas station? So we're at that level now, which is great because it's saving time. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that we have to balance between convenience and sustainability. Really, for me, this is the key thing. People are looking for convenience, are looking for more speed, for more information, for better services, for all of this. And we are not ready maybe to pay most of the people for more. Some of them, yes, and the trend is that more people are able to pay for these more sustainable products. But we have to balance. I don't know how to do it, but this is, I think, the key thing.
I think it's two sides of that, right? One is the education piece, because lots of people who can pay for this richer product almost are not aware that it exists, not aware that it's a good option. It's really hard to understand. It's hard to, it's kind of risky to try it because what if it's rubbish? That's like my holiday. So I think that the education piece, and I see the industry as having a really big role on, there are sustainable products out there and they are amazing and they're wonderful and you want to choose them because you want to, not because you ought to. And I think the other side is the policy support, right? Because then there are people, this often it has a premium. Trains are much more expensive than planes. And you need that policy engagement and that leadership that's already emerging in some places in Europe in particular to help make those things more accessible.
Yes, sometimes we are very focused on transportation, that the industry, because we know that maybe there is the main. We are struggling mainly with this, no? But we are not paying attention to other sectors in the industry.
Didier?
Yeah, maybe the topic is not how to react to your of what you want, but maybe to have a predictive information solution before you need, as you mentioned with your tank. So what does it mean? That means all the companies in the services in hospitality needs to know what's your behaviors, what you need, what you request. So that means the data of when you enter in a room, in your room, in a bedroom, what do you need exactly? So it's a unique services based on ultra personalization of your needs. Meaning, as you send the data of your passports, you could a day send the data sets of your needs when you travel, when you go to the whole steps on the travel and the trip. And that needs clean data, trust also on what your counterpart will do with your data. But all the technology is there. So now my point of view is the trust should be developed between the customers and the companies.
It is the trust, because it's one thing to talk about predictive behavior. It's another thing to talk about memory. And for predictive behavior, that's a little scary to me. For memory, I love it, right? If I go to a hotel and I log on to the Wi-Fi, and my computer knows that that's the Wi-Fi at that hotel with that password, and I come back 3 weeks later and I just open up my computer and I'm already online, that memory is a benefit to me. I'm not having to go downstairs and ask what the password is and figure out all the buttons I've got to push. But it gets down to the predictive behavior aspects of it without the trust. I think that's where we are right now. Sam?
Well, I was going to say, this is an area where a lot of people look to government and they look to policymakers to put dampers on the AI advancement, right? It's not the engineers that are going to come with this. They're going to continue to push the boundaries and see where they can go. But I think that people need to be reminded that you can also vote with your dollars, right? When you buy these tools, you're voting with your dollars. And perhaps this is where industry trade associations such as World for Travel come into play, where it's like, we have this tool, but this one is not going to pass our screening because you don't do enough trust and you don't do enough level of scrutiny with your model. And therefore, all of our members aren't going to be buying from this AI company, but these that actually pertain to these regulations that we like, we're going to let these guys be bought and vote with our dollars.
Well, right now, speaking of trust and the flow of information, not to do specifically with travel, we have an election coming up in the United States next year, if you hadn't noticed. And the biggest fear of all is the flow of information or misinformation that can be generated based on predictive behavior and people operating in silos. It's sort of like we have the wild, wild west out there when it comes to AI, but there's no sheriff.
This is, again, why trust comes into play. You pay attention to the people that you trust. And when competition increases or when the amount
You just said something very interesting. You pay attention to the people that you trust. But what you're asking us to do is to pay attention to the machines that we don't know.
No, not at all. I'm asking for the machines to help you drive down costs and to actually drive revenue from your data.
Right, but what does it matter if you drive down costs if I don't trust you?
But I think this comes to brand, right? It comes to the brands that are leading on transparency and publishing how they're managing the technology, right? How you're putting you've got people putting climate action plans together, you've got people putting AI supervision plans together. Before we started experimenting at all with this, we had a little working Notion document for the team that says these are the things we will do, these are the things we won't do, these are the things we're worried about doing, and we need to get external advice before we even start playing with them. And that's changed loads since we wrote it. As we've been experimenting, but it puts restrictions around, and when we can share that with our customers trust us, and then they trust the way that we're using the tech because we share it with them and because we give them ways to email us to say, well, what if I don't like that? And we can open a discussion about it and include them in the process.
Well, it gets down to brand differentiation, because once you have a brand that you can trust with the technology, everybody's on board.
Well, the analogy to this, I think you can see that with like American Appliances, right? American Appliances, we started coming out with those Energy Star efficiency stickers that went on some of those, and they, people were able to vote with their dollars, right? Because they knew, they were like, hey, you know what, this appliance actually is in that sustainable area that I want, right? It's the same thing with some of these AI tools, where it's like, if I have a trusted entity that then is able to write off on some of these tools, then maybe that will lead to more people wanting to adopt it.
Well, you see, I'm old school about this because even in the hotel here in Seville, I can't figure out the thermostat in the room, right? I mean, I go back to the old days of the Honeywell wheel, just on and off. So with all the technology, don't you also have a challenge to also keep it simple?
Google's got a pretty simple Nest system that does all that.
And how big is the manual?
It's just a wheel. Can't really go wrong with that.
So they've gone back to the wheel, the old Honeywell wheel. So I'm sorry, Kat.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the purpose of technology largely is to keep things simple, right? It's to make things simple that are complicated for the customer and for the people internally who are using things.
So let's go, for example, to the basic transaction that I started talking about. I wanted to go to New York, right? Next thing you know, I was given 2 fare quotes, right? That was the technology working. It was increasing revenue, right? Wasn't enhancing the customer experience, right? By the way, that was a rhetorical question. But let's move on from that. Where do we get to the point, it goes back to your talk, Kat, about educating the consumer, where they can embrace the technology, they can embrace AI and blockchain to make it work for them and still give you all the goals that you wanted, Sam, about increasing revenue, operational efficiency, and driving costs down?
I think the consumer will embrace it the moment he has a benefit out of that, right? I mean, we, for instance, strongly believe that in future the consumer will be running around with digital wallets. In those digital, you all have an iPhone or an Apple phone, so, or an Android phone. There are already wallets in there who store a lot about yourself, your preferences, your membership keys, and so on. In future, actually, if you look at ahead what's coming, so we will have our EID, our digital twin in that wallet. We will have our profile in that wallet. We will have our digital money, CBDC is coming, so not crypto in that wallet. And that means actually, if you as a company can read this kind of wallet, you're in the same position that MasterCard and Visa are today, that they can predict your future behavior, and they can very well actually offer you services. So the whole thing we've been talking about in our travel industry about personalization, about making a product more fit to the customer itself, tailor-made, that then suddenly becomes a thing because the customer can do that. I mean, he actually, you all heard about cookies, you mentioned it yourself. Cookies are dead, actually. I mean, there are laws now coming which prohibit actually the storage of cookies. So all the money we invested in the past in CRMs and profile building,
that's all going.
That's
going.
all gone. But the customer of the future will tell us who he is if he gets something out of that. And the interesting part of that opens a lot of new marketing possibilities as well. So for instance, if I, as a flight customer flying to New York, offset my flight, I get some kind of NFT or some kind of token or some kind of credit into my wallet. If I then shop with Patagonia, who is known to be a very sustainable shop, Patagonia can see that token and say, hey, this is a good guy, he's a green guy. I give him 10%. That's called token gating. So we will see more and more also based on what you have done, what you have in your wallet, you will see product offering as well in future.
Well, you're talking about storage. I want to talk about that because right now, in some of the systems that I use, they have information stored about me that does benefit me, that does make it an easier transaction, that makes it faster, makes it more transparent, right? But now let's go to the next step. The questions that need to be asked, that can also be in the storage, that talks about sustainability, that talks about the carbon offsets, that talks about the footprint that you're leaving, that you can actually program in to then not only ask those questions, but then lead you to a solution that is the win-win for everything you talked about, Sam, of revenue, cost, efficiency, and the customer experience. Where are we in terms of the questions that need to be asked?
I think today we are still asking the wrong questions. Let's take
We'll talk about
an easy example of a car rental. Most of you will have rented a car in your life. They will always ask you for your birth date, right? It's the wrong question. They want to know, are you older than 20 years old? are you eligible to drive a car? So today in our legacy systems, we are still storing birth dates, but most of the companies are not doing anything to that. Or have you ever received a birthday card from Sixt or Avis or whatever they are called? No, they just need it for their internal processes. You mentioned zero knowledge, zero proofs. This is a new way to actually interact with customers as well. The customer will decide what kind of data he's going to share, and that data will not even be transmitted. The real data, that's protected. That's your own data itself. And I mean, each time I talk about data privacy, there's a really good exercise. We can do it right now if you allow me. So please, everybody in the audience, take out your phone and unlock your phone. Right? Unlock your phone, and now hand it over to the next person next to you. Hand it over. How do you feel? Now somebody has your phone. On that phone is all your private chat, all your gossips, all the pictures you don't want to see. This is what happens when you expose data. And we need to be very, very careful about customer data, right? So now you can hand it back before you destroy some marriages.
Yeah.
I think this goes to storytelling as well. I think the more that we are able to tell stories to our customers about why we are collecting, asking for the data that we're asking for, what we're going to do with it, and what kind of benefit they have, the easier that relationship will be. So we will ask.
Well, you want to be able to connect the dots. You want to be able to let people know this is what we're asking for. This is what 6 words. What does this mean to you?
Right, exactly. Right? So, and we have, some of our customers will buy our products because of being sustainable, right? Maybe they're already vegan or they've given up plastic shopping bags, but that's a real minority. And for those people, they want to know right up front, yes, I want to share with you what I normally do. So when we have a booking on our website, we'll say, we'd like to track our impact. Would you let us know what you would have done anyway, right? If you hadn't booked this holiday with Byway Overland, would you have got a long-haul flight or a short-haul flight or stayed at home on the sofa? And then we can map the impact, whether we've cost some carbon by getting them off the sofa or whether we've saved some carbon versus something else. And they can then do something with that too, right? And they can say, this is an important thing for me to be showing people that I'm being sustainable, and they can report those bits of data in context, and we can give them norms and things like that. Other customers won't care about that at all at the point of booking. They're booking because it's an interesting experience and a rich experience. And for those customers, they don't want to give us the sustainability data, but they do want to tell us exactly what kind of hotel accommodation they want, what they won't accept, and what kind of class of travel they need, and whether they need to be on the top deck of the train or not. And so that data they're very happy to give us because it goes to their experience. And then later, maybe we give them a carbon impact report, and they say, oh, actually, that's really great. Next time, I might give you that data. And then next time they come back, they will. But there is an evolution of data storytelling with lots of customers where you can't just wade in and expect lots of data up front.
But, in theory, that's great. It is. But it gets down to flow of information and source of information. Because let's go back to the original days of TripAdvisor. Right? And what was TripAdvisor started to do? As a group of like-minded individuals sharing information in an open, honest, and credible way about destinations, their experience, hotels, etc. It got corrupted. It got corrupted because it got manipulated. It got manipulated very early on, where half the reviews were being written by hotels themselves. And so how do you trust that, right? So we know that people may want to be good storytellers, but the question is, how do you verify who the storyteller is?
Well, we do it by the fact that they've booked a holiday with us, and we report the data only as people who've booked holidays with us.
All right, so you qualify them.
Right. Yeah. So you can't answer those questions unless you've booked a holiday, or if you're giving information to plan a holiday, then that's always reported from a group of people who are playing with the holiday customization tools on the website. So I think it goes back to the trust piece and the brand piece and the transparency piece about how are we using the data and what are the protections, and then ultimately, does the customer want to trust this company or not?
It almost touches on, you had Elon Musk just wager $44 billion on the fact that he could take Twitter and make it a trusted platform, right? So they're trying to put these things in there that...
Is that why he's doing it?
We can debate other things, right? But they're putting that verification that this information is actually accurate and it's coming from a peer versus somebody that sponsored it, right?
Right.
That you can make that differentiation between the data.
You know, it's Didier.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you have two steps on the data. The first one is yes for
Hold the microphone just.
As you mentioned, two steps maybe. The first one is to select the destination, and you need such trusted information. But then you have a lot of information are not so personal. If you share the number of towels, the color you would like in your room, if you prefer coffee and tea, that's some information I'm quite happy to share with an hotel if I get the services afterwards. And that's the service and the way the relationship increase the interaction and its personalization could be done now. With some data, if someone has such information of the number of towels I have in the room, it's not a big issue for me. And right now, it's not yet really utilized on the production of the services. And that could be done.
So coming back to your TripAdvisor example, which is a beautiful example as well for blockchain technology, we work with one startup called Triento.io. They want to become the decentralized TripAdvisor. And the way they do it is that they put a proof of travel or proof of attendance on the blockchain itself. So you as a customer, you go to a restaurant, you go to a hotel, whatever, you do a check-in, and that check-in is then verified by other validators and then put immutable on the blockchain. And that review gets then actually a badge, like saying, okay, this is a trusted review, for instance.
And that happened only because they got manipulated. Simple as that.
Well, and I think it's a natural evolution of technology, right? Where people go, no, we can't trust it the way it is, so we need something else to verify it, so we get back to what we want. Because, I mean, there is that psychological fact that when there's too much information out there, people just shut it all off, right? And then it gives people choice. They can then choose to go to that concierge service where they talk to a person instead of have to deal with...
What a concept.
Yeah.
No, but I get that. But let's talk about flow of information in another way. And that is, recently the New York Times did an investigative piece and discovered that dozens and dozens and dozens of books, travel guidebooks that are being sold by Amazon, were all written by ChatGPT. And people that didn't exist, information that wasn't verified, the covers look nice, but the names are all fictitious, I mean, in terms of the authors, and people were just buying it and believing in it. So now, where's the trust issue when you want to go buy a book? It's no different than you just talked about TripAdvisor.
I barely buy anything off of Amazon anymore. And I got tired of getting headsets that broke the first time I opened them out of the box and stopped trusting the stuff that came from them.
You're just buying cheaper headsets. I know what you're doing. No, but you see what I'm saying. The point is, it's a traditional pipeline, right, that we've come to trust, and all of a sudden now, the other day, I went to ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to write a story about a country that I would write. And it did. Now, was there stuff missing in there? You bet. Was there stuff wrong in there? Yes. Could I have submitted that to a magazine? And would they have published it? That's a pretty scary thought, because where's their vetting process? I mean, the chain continues. And in the flow of information about making travel decisions, about selling travel, about all the aspects of travel, right? From selling it to providing services to maintenance, we have the technology now, but we still have to have the trust. It all goes back to that again. So as travelers now, right, I'm going to ask you, just as travelers, what questions do you want answered in terms of the experience that you have with AI? As travelers.
I would have loved to have it write me a summary of reasons to visit Seville. It would have given me a great dot point of things to visit while I was on the tour here, and it would have been...
Although there are at least 60 people in this room right now who could tell you that answer.
Well, of course, but I didn't know them until I got here.
I got that. Okay.
I would ask interesting places. I would ask interesting places that nobody knows in Andalusia, that are real and authentic, and that we can travel by bike or by a sustainable way of traveling.
Kat?
I don't know. I don't think I would ask AI very much as a traveler. So I went recently to Zagreb, and I did ask AI there what I should do, because I like mountains and I'm in the middle of a city and I've got a couple of children and I don't have a car and what could I do? And it was brilliant because it sent me up a tram that took me up to the top of a mountain where there was a cable car. It told me the cable car was running. It wasn't, but we had a hike. We had a hike instead of a cable car.
By the way,
and it
that's
was-
an interesting point. My own researchers who work for me, I have a rule with them. If I ask you a question and you come back with a 3-word answer, the web said, you're fired. Because they didn't pick up the phone and have a conversation to find out that the hotel didn't burn down last night or that the tram wasn't working.
Right, exactly. So we went, and I was, CEO of Byway, going off around interesting places, finding things out, asking ChatGPT, and it gave me the idea, and I thought, it sounds amazing, and it's very on brand for us because there's a tram, and it goes up a mountain, and you can hike, and you can take the kids, and there's a playground, and it's amazing. And
how fast did it take you to get that answer? Pretty fast.
it was very fast to get the answer, but it took me all day to go and do the trip and find out the bits that weren't working, and the fact that the cable car wasn't running, and it gave me one tram instead of 2 trams that I needed to take. But what I then did...
See, now what you could do is go on TripAdvisor and do a review of that experience.
So no, what I did when I got home was I said, well, brilliant, we have now got this incredible experience, and I've been on it, and I now understand exactly how it works, and now we can populate that into our activities database, and we can recommend that in future to other people. But
You first had to take the trip.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the key, is you can ask it for the idea, but you can't just trust it, and you have to verify, especially if you're, for us, our brand is really important. We're not just going to throw out AI activities to people that haven't been checked, but there are lots of ways to check stuff, and there's an opportunity also, we haven't done this yet, but we have lots of travelers going through lots of places all the time, where if we said, hey, this is an interesting idea, do you want to go and try it as a little adventure and feedback? Some people will say, oh, I'll try that as a little adventure, and we bail them out if they get stuck. And there are lots of different ways you can do it with team, but also with customers participating as well.
So we're right now at the level of AI development where it goes back to the Reagan-Gorbachev quote, trust but verify.
Yeah.
Sam, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I think I would also go more for the inspiration part, or that it connects me with people I can talk to. Still even being a techie, I would prefer to hear it from the horse's mouth than from the source itself. And where I would see AI really, really crucial in future is, but we are not yet there, is in disruption. So whenever I, as a traveler, find up a problem, and usually in that moment I'm somewhere abroad, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I have a problem, I don't have 24-hour support from Byway, so that's when I would need some kind of indications. Okay, what are the next steps? What can you do now? Or some type of intelligence like that the AI automatically does, because currently we are only talking about question and answers, but AI can do much more. They can execute things as well. Like, okay, my flight is being delayed. Okay, please inform the hotel that the first room night they don't cancel my hotel. And this kind of actions can become very, very handy in future.
AI would be perfectly helpful to me and give me the answer that this particular flight has a 96% chance of never leaving. That would be helpful.
I think the important touch point that you're skipping over here is that AI is only going to regurgitate information that's already out there to you. So I think it's actually important for people in the industry to realize that the information that they want out there needs to be out there, such as search engine optimization, things like this, but almost on steroids, where now if you want the AIs to find the information to tell potential clients about you, it needs to be out there in a format that you want them to consume.
Didier.
I would love to be considered as a VVIP by my AI apps. That meaning ultra personalization. Meaning if I have 2 hours today in Seville and I ask the AI what to do, it will not push to me the package they all have already set in the system. They will offer me in the 2 hours to visit the Alcazar and maybe the cathedral because they have some interaction with my calendar. Maybe they could ask me if I could have the priority in switching some meetings and so on and so forth. So it's saving times and give me some really personal services and advice to me, Didier, not to the mass.
Right. It can personalize the entire experience. And that's really the future right there, and it's really the promise, right?
Mass customization.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Mass customization.
Right.
You can really bring it down to somebody's actual experience, right? As soon as I touch the fact that I'm going to Sevilla, right, you can begin to educate me, you can begin to tell me, you can begin to do things that would optimize my experience for when I actually get here.
And of course, the true benefit that we're talking about, it hasn't gotten there yet, is that when you throw the sustainability factor in, it can also, knowing about your interests, knowing about what's being offered, it can give you information about your participation in a sustainable travel experience that actually is worthwhile and valuable to you.
But it won't unless someone tells it to, right? And I think that's the key, is you can't just, we have to be careful not to assume that AI is going to fix sustainability in general. I think we need to take some responsibility as an industry for also pushing the boundaries of what is possible and what is sustainable, and for whether we're using AI or not, taking a role in educating customers to these opportunities and facilitating them for customers to make them easy and make them accessible. And there's a lot of change that's needed. And if AI is harnessed by someone who's controlling it and prompting it to provide, if you get this kind of input from a customer, then don't forget to elevate these sorts of recommendations, then that's very helpful. But if you forget to prompt it in that way, it's just going to converge to the mean, right? It's going to do the average, and the average isn't sustainable, and the average isn't.
And
It's about identifying, if you'll excuse the expression, keywords and also key emotions.
Well, and it is possible to have plugins and additions to these tools to say, okay, you want to do this, well, here's the answer to this, this, and this. But if you want to be more sustainable, I would recommend this, this, and this, such as that it sounds like your tool actually is doing.
Yeah, and I think the point is to do it proactively, because many people don't know to ask or don't think to ask. So
Or they just don't know the right questions to ask.
Yeah, all that.
Many people don't want to ask as well. I mean, I can give you an example. I used to work for a tour operator in Switzerland. We had Morton Briggs travel agencies, and we had, of course, the online presence. Do you know how many sustainable of carbon offsetting, for instance, we were able to sell in the travel agency? What do you guess? Almost 23% of the customers would buy it because the travel agent trained to offer it would do it, and you would have a human being in front of you looking you in the eyes and say, hey, don't you want to do something good for your planet? Then people go, yes. You know what the figure was online? 1%, because nobody was watching. Now, that brings me back to what you said. We need also legal frameworks that put that through, because if you only trust the humans, they won't do it. If I don't get caught, I don't compensate. That's a very human, selfish thing to be. So we can put any kind of IT, any kind of technology in there, which will solve all of this, offer it. But the human, if they have the choice, not everybody will compensate.
Yeah, and I think that's also a really important point, which is that we are, ideally, these are excellent products and services that happen to be sustainable versus less good options that are sustainable, and I really ought to take them. And I think there's a refocusing that needs to happen at some scale, so that you're not just always saying to someone, oh yes, well, you can do all of these things, but have you thought of these things which are very good for the world and sustainable, where you want the sustainable option to just be part of one of the best of amazing options, right? And it's competing on how good it is and how much people want to do it, and emphasizing the depth and richness of experience that, by the way, is also sustainable.
But not only the experience, it's also about price. I mean, customers are driven by price today.
I didn't know that.
And I think that there's also another aspect we have not had enough time to talk about. AI can help reduce costs in other areas, like you mentioned today, which then can be included into more sustainable products. So not driving costs extremely up, as you mentioned, the example with trains is insane, that a train from Zurich to Berlin is 3 times the fare of an airline ticket. And it's 1 hour instead of 10 hours, right?
There's a saying in technology that if what you're using is free, then you probably are the product. And it's because some of these platforms, they make so much money off the data that you generate. And so the interesting topic may be to explore in the travel industry how to get people to start creating that data, because now they have a valuable asset as long as they're selling their data that they create for the actual value that it is.
Which brings me to almost our last question, and that is, how do you do that without proper regulation and control?
Yeah, maybe I think that a framework with some tax maybe should happen, or all the industry should compensate maybe with some regulation. as you mentioned, if you ask to a customers to compensate, it's also a question of trust. And back to trust, with the green bashing and so on, how I could be confident on the fact that if I pay for €1 or $1 for compensation, that will be go on the right direction. So still a question of trust of what the companies are doing. So maybe a third party could validate all of those as we have on some other industries. So it could be regulation of how to create trust to avoid taxes.
It's
And
up
then,
to
of
the
course, following the money.
It's up to the individuals and the actual associations to force this a lot of times, right? You need to know the value of the plants of the wheat that you're growing before you sell it to the next person, right? You have the Facebooks and the Metas of the world that have a platform that you can book tickets through to create data, and then they're going to distill that and they're going to sell it. But you're the ones that's creating it, right? So if you have the hotels, the planes, and the trains that's creating the trend data, you need to know how valuable that is. And if there's a platform out there that's not returning any value to you because they're just going to take your data and advertise them, don't do business with them. Force them to be transparent.
Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our panel. And by the way, before you applaud, I'm not real. I'm GPT.